Alzheimer's, repetitive questions, behavior, and the role of communication in Alzheimer's care. What happened when I learned how to deal with these issues? I learned that I was no longer exasperated, bent out of shape, or stressed out. Quite the opposite, in fact. I felt good about myself. I felt good, not bad. Hello, everyone. I'm Bob DeMarco, founder of the Alzheimer's Reading Room. Please remember to like, share, and comment on this video. One thing that drives Alzheimer's caregivers crazy is repetitive questions and repetitive behavior. I know this from the number of emails I receive on this issue and the thousands of comments on the same issue. It is clear to me that a large fraction of persons living with Alzheimer's disease ask the same things over and over. I understand how disconcerting this can be. I was there once upon a time, and it happened to me on a daily basis. It took me a long time to understand this repetitive behavior and adjust to it. I'm looking at my Leonardo da Vinci pad and some of my bunkhouse notes. One question I ask myself, why am I allowing this behavior to drive me nuts? I know it's going to continue to happen every day until I figure out how to do something about it. Why can't I accept that this is part of the reality of living with someone who has Alzheimer's disease? Why can't I accept this as a normal part of everyday living? Seems straightforward, doesn't it? Keep in mind, when a person living with Alzheimer's asks repetitive questions or does crazy things, it's not their fault. It is a result of how Alzheimer's attacks the brains. So these kinds of situations and experiences help me to envision what I call Alzheimer's world, and then to start formalizing my construct of Alzheimer's world. So for me, there are two communications worlds, real world and Alzheimer's world. In real world, I communicate much in the same way that I always have. I decided I was not going to try and change real world. I would keep it just as it is. In Alzheimer's world, the communication is very different than in real world. For one thing, there is only one other person in Alzheimer's world most of the time, my mother. One thing that makes my mother different from the rest of us is that her short-term memory is gone. This happens to all Alzheimer's patients. It would be foolish of me to expect her to remember what I said a little while ago. She can't remember what I said. She can't remember more than 3 little words. As Alzheimer's progresses, short-term memory disappears. It no longer exists. Once you accept and understand that short-term memory is gone, you should not be surprised if a person with Alzheimer's asks the same question repeatedly. They cannot remember they asked the question. They don't know if they asked you once or 10 times. They just don't know. You can remember. Because you are still in the real world, your short-term memory is still working. They are in Alzheimer's world. No new memories world. As I thought about this, I came to a simple conclusion. Instead of trying to change Alzheimer's world, instead of trying to fight Alzheimer's world, not only would I accept Alzheimer's world as a reality, I would go into Alzheimer's world and learn how to communicate effectively. You do have to learn new ways to communicate with the person living with Alzheimer's or related dementia. Here's the first thing I learned, and this is important. The fewer words you say, the better they work in Alzheimer's world. So when my mother asked me, what day is it? The answer is Thursday. Not, I already told you it's Thursday, or you just asked me that 5 minutes ago. Thursday. One word. You know what I learned? I learned that this is really easy to do. And I learned that you don't get bent out of shape in Alzheimer's world when you keep it simple. I learned something else. Once you finally accept that this is the way it is going to be, you might find yourself laughing or chuckling when the questions keep coming. You fully expect what is going to happen in advance. You figured this out in real world, by the way. After a couple years, I thought to myself, it must be really disconcerting when you don't know what day, month, or year it is. I mean, how do you think you would feel if you never knew what day it was, or whether it was winter, spring, summer, or fall? You would probably feel a little bit nutty and disconcerted much of the time. This causes confusion. So I found myself thinking, this must really be disconcerting to my mother. I continued to think about it more and more. I started thinking this is probably why my mother gets mean or starts acting crazy. If she doesn't know what day it is, it must be disconcerting. I started to think about all the other things she no longer knows or remembers. I realized all of that is unsettling to her. You see a theme here? I started thinking about my mother and how she was feeling instead of how I was feeling. So I made it about my mom and not about me. What do you think? I added another behavior to my arsenal of communication tools that I use in Alzheimer's world. If my mother starts asking me a question over and over, I think to myself, she must really want to know or really need to know. Maybe not knowing is disturbing her right now. So here's what I started doing. Instead of getting bent out of shape and giving her a completely exasperated response, I started doing the opposite. Please listen closely because this works. I walked over, put my arm around her, put my head against her head, basically put my head on her head, and said, Thursday. Then I gave her a little squeeze. Obviously, over time, I started doing this more often in different situations. Guess what I learned? I learned that I no longer felt exasperated. I was no longer getting bent out of shape, and the amount of stress I was experiencing went way down. I felt good about myself. I felt good, not bad. So you see, you do have a choice while you're caring for someone. You can accept that certain things are going to happen over and over. You can come to an understanding that these behaviors are not part of your world. They are part of a new and very different world. I call it Alzheimer's world. Soon you might conclude that you need to start developing some new and different communication strategies to communicate with someone that has Alzheimer's. Soon you might learn that things that used to drive you up the wall can actually have the opposite effect. It can make you feel good about yourself. Here's a tip. You start feeling good about yourself, and soon the person who has Alzheimer's will start feeling pretty good also. Instead of getting that nasty vibe from you and the negative feelings, you will be sending a very different signal. That signal is, I care. As you learn to communicate in Alzheimer's world, you will be doing something that is very important. You will be creating an environment that is very safe and very secure. Once your Alzheimer's patient starts feeling safe and secure, they will become kinder and more gentle. Trust me, this works. If I treated you with respect and understanding, wouldn't you be kinder and more gentle to me? Before you know it, you might learn that the most important lesson of them all, Alzheimer's world is very different than you think. Alzheimer's world is a good place, not a bad place. If you look in the show notes for this podcast, you will find links that are related to the podcast and enhance the issues discussed in the podcast. You are welcome to join over 36,000 active readers who are already benefiting from the articles in the Alzheimer's Reading Room. To subscribe, go directly to alzheimersreadingroom.com. You'll see the subscription box. Thank you for listening. See you all next time. I'm Bob DeMarco.